Hi guys, today is March 26, 2020, and this is going to be our writer's workshop lesson for today. I have to start by highlighting two of my friends, Chloe. She typed her fairy tale, which in another video, maybe not today, maybe for tomorrow, I will film me reading part of her story as well as Esteban. I just happen to have it open, so I'm just going to share really quickly. But I'm very proud of my students from my class, and I'd love to hear from Miss Alonso's class and Miss Delgado's class and see what fairy tale you guys got going on. I'm sure it's awesome. But try to share it with us so that we can see what you guys have so far and we can highlight you. Let me see if I can find Esteban's really quick. Yeah. So first of all, I love the fact that he took the initiative. This is ownership, right? He took the ownership and he created his heart map. And he happens to have access to a computer, so that's awesome. If you don't, you can just take a picture of it. There have been people who've sent me pictures of the work, like Emily and other students. So here's his heart map, and then he started writing his story, The Three Little Teeth and the Big Tooth Fairy. I'll just read one or two sentences from it, and in another video we can read all of it. So once upon a time, there were three little teeth that had fallen off from a boy. The boy did not eat healthy food. One tooth was called Shiny, the other was called Sharpie, the last one was called Rotten. I'm just really excited to read the rest of the story and see where the story is going to go. So some snaps for Chloe and for Esteban. And we're going to start with our writer's workshop lesson for today. So just quickly, I'm going to show you guys your learning intentions. So if you think back yesterday, our video was all about different dialogue tags. So instead of saying said, we said is dead, right? And we used different words to replace said. So like asking a question, right? Like they asked a question, or they responded, they replied, they whispered, they giggled, they yelled, they screamed. There's so many different words to use instead of the word said. And that's what we did yesterday. So hopefully you watched that video already and you did the work and you went through your fairy tale and you replaced some of those saids. Today, our learning intention is we're going to learn how to incorporate, say it with me, similes and metaphors into our fairy tale adaptations. When I say the word incorporate, that means to add something in, right? To incorporate. And we're familiar with similes and metaphors. We've talked about them, especially when we were reading The One and Only Ivan, because there were so many in that book. And so this is just going to be a fun way for us to learn how to incorporate similes and metaphors. So success criteria. How do I know I'm successful by the end of this writing lesson? Well, by the end of my writing lesson today, I've added 2 to 5 similes and or metaphors. Language intention, I use words like similes and metaphors. I want to highlight Yanette because Yanette posted a comment and she was like, Miss Maldonado, I've been saying things out loud, and my mom's kind of like looking at me, why are you saying things out loud? That's what I want. And you can tell your parents, mom, dad, Miss Maldonado, Miss Delgado, Miss Alonso want me to say these things out loud, so I keep practicing the language. Please make sure you do that. Social intention is always, I do the work even when no one is looking. And I really appreciate the students who have either messaged us on YouTube or sent messages through phone or email. Thank you for that. Keep up the good work. So I'm going to look at my recipe card for today. I have to reread my fairy tale thus far every single time. You're probably now super familiar with Catarella, and that's good because the more you get familiar with the story, the more you're going to think to yourself, what can I do better, or how can I improve this writing? Step number 2, remember a simile is a comparison between two things using the words like or as. So I have 2 examples. Catarella's paws were soft like a pillow. This is a simile because I'm comparing her paws to a pillow, and I'm using the word like. Her eyes were green like emeralds. What am I comparing? Yep, her eyes to emeralds, which are like a gem, right? And I'm using the word like. Remember, a metaphor is very similar, but it's a comparison between two things, and it doesn't use the words like or as. You just say something is something else. So I use the same idea so that you can see the difference between a simile and metaphor. Catarella's paws are pillows. Are they really pillows? No, right? But I'm comparing it so that the reader knows that her paws are very, very soft. And I'm not using the word like or as. My second metaphor that I have, her eyes are green emeralds. What am I comparing again? Her eyes and the emeralds, but I'm just saying her eyes are emeralds. And the last step from our recipe card is to think to yourself, where in my writing can I add a simile or metaphor? So I'm going to go back to step one. I'm going to read everything so far, and maybe as I'm reading it and you hear me, because I've already added a simile or metaphor in the beginning of my story, you can say like out loud, like, ooh, that's a simile, or ooh, that's a metaphor, right? And then the last part of my story that I added this morning, I'm going to demo. I'm going to show you how you can read it and revise it so that you can add a simile or metaphor. So here we go. And you know this story very well so far. The sun was high in the sky, and pink clouds lingered over Catarella's two-story brick house in Manhattan, New York. Sparrows sang perched on honey locust trees. Butterflies fluttered their brightly colored wings as Catarella sang in her garden, pruning her white roses. Catarella was a very beautiful gray cat with a thick coat and lovely eyes the color of emeralds. Catarella had lost her mother as a child to sickness, and she lived with her papa cat. She was a good daughter. She cleaned all of the litter boxes and made mouth-watering meals for her papa like rat stew and fish soup. However, Papa Cat was lonely and he longed to have a wife again. A few weeks later, Papa Cat signed up for a dating app called Perfect Match in order to find a wife. He went on many dates before he finally met a beautiful white Persian cat with piercing blue eyes, blue like glaciers. He said simile, awesome, right? I'm comparing her eyes to blue glaciers. Her name was Mimi, and she enjoyed long walks on the beach, candlelit tuna dinners, and she herself had two adorable calico kittens, Zoe and Chloe. Papa Cat fell in love with Mimi and soon married her. Papa, it makes me smile to see you so happy with your new wife, Catarella whispered to her papa. But Catarella's happiness would soon wither away like a rose in the middle of winter. Whoa. Here's a simile because I'm comparing Catarella's happiness to a rose that's dying in the middle of winter, meaning her happiness is starting to go away. As soon as Mimi and her daughters moved in, everything went wrong. When Papa Cat wasn't looking, Mimi and her two stepdaughters would be very cruel to Catarella. Why is there so much poop in my litter box? Catarella asked her stepsisters. Because we felt like pooping in your litter box. Your box is nicer than ours. One day, Catarella was searching for her favorite mouse toy when she spotted Zoe ripping the threads off of her toy. Zoe, why must you destroy my toy? This is your toy? It's so old. I felt like destroying something today. She yawned. Chloe, Catarella asked, may I get my pillow back? You're kidding, right? This is my pillow now, Chloe said firmly. Catarella would mysteriously find white long hairs on her favorite dresses in her closet. Catarella would cry at night, meowing softly into her pillow, wondering, Papa, why did you choose to marry Mimi? Despite their wickedness, she remained kind to them. One day, Papa Cat had to fly to Kathmandu on a business trip. Day in and day out, poor Catarella was forced to do all the chores for her malicious stepmother and stepsisters. Catarella was unhappy and disliked her stepmother and stepsisters very much. A few evenings later, Catarella was returning from a hunt when she saw a fancy invitation on the door from Meow the Prince. The invitation said the family of the house was invited to a cat ball at the Kitty Suite in the Empire State Building and to wear elegant gowns. There would be mouth-watering sushi, scrumptious tuna bites, and all kinds of delicious cat treats. Catarella sprinted in meowing, unable to contain her excitement. Guys, we've been invited to a ball. I can't wait to go and dance and prance with the prince. Catarella, what makes you think you're going? You don't own any pretty dresses. Well, I'm a great seamstress. I can make a gown out of yarn, Catarella painfully replied, looking down at her tired paws. The stepmother glared at Catarella and rudely said, Well, let's see if you can make your fancy gown in time for the ball. Catarella worked really hard. She began by taking out her knitting needles and going to the yarn shop in town. Her stepmother and stepsisters had stolen much of her money, so with the little money she had, she chose bright blue yarn the color of peacock feathers and wove a beautiful dress in time for the ball. She made a crown out of daisies and dahlias from her garden and painted her tiny claws a sky blue. On the day of the ball, she went downstairs to proudly show her dress off to her stepmother and stepsister. Catarella did indeed look gorgeous, and she purred with joy. Mimi, Zoe, and Chloe were doing some finishing touches on their dresses when their eyes fell on Catarella. Catarella asked, "Ladies, what do you think of my outfit? I made it myself." That is pretty, said Zoe. "Yes, it is pretty for now," growled Mimi while looking at her daughter. Zoe and Chloe immediately understood what Mother wanted them to do. They began to circle Catarella. Zoe lied. "You have some yarn hanging." Zoe and Chloe pulled the yarn, Catarella's dress coming apart. Chloe left a disgusting hairball in the torn parts of Catarella's dress, ruining it even more. Minnie locked eyes with Catarella, who sat on the floor on her tattered dress. "That's too bad, Catarella," Minnie spat. "It was pretty." Catarella was devastated as she watched Minnie, Zoe, and Chloe leave for the ball. Her tears clouded her eyes and spilled on the floor as she wished out loud, "Oh, I wish I could go to the ball. Oh, how I wish it so." The floor suddenly started to tremble and a sweet song started to play. Out of thin air appeared a cat fairy. Catarella could not believe her eyes. It was Paws, the fairy cat mother. "My dear, why do you cry so intensely?" asked Paws, the cat mother. "Paws, I thought you were make-believe from my fairy tale books." "Are you really my fairy cat mother?" Paws laughed with delight. "Of course. I am, Catarella. I'm here to help you get to the ball on time." Catarella replied with tears in her eyes, but my wicked stepmother and stepsisters tore my dress apart. It's ruined." Paws looked down at the destroyed dress and responded with a smile. "Well, I have a magic wand, and I think I can make a pretty dress in no time." Paul swirled her magic wand around Catarella, and magic fairy dust floated in the air as Catarella's blue yarn dress began to transform into a dazzling bright sky blue dress. Catarella suddenly had a touch of pink blush on her cheeks, and a diamond collar appeared around her neck. Catarella glanced in the mirror and was amazed. The tears from her eyes had disappeared, and her reflection showed a very, very elegant cat. "Oh, thank you, Paws, my fairy cat mother. I will run to the ball now." "No, you will not. I will turn that pumpkin into a carriage and the neighborhood dogs into horses. Those pesky dogs are just sleeping on the yard anyway." "You look like a princess now, and I do not want you to tear your dress." Catarella nodded. "Oh, Catarella, before you leave, remember you must leave the castle by midnight. Once the clock strikes 12 o'clock, your dress will be transformed back into your torn one." "I promise to leave by midnight." "Thank you, fairy cat mother." Catarella was whisked away into the night in her carriage towards the magnificent, and I just caught a mistake, the magnificent Kitty Suite in the Empire State Building. When she arrived, the whole suite was lit up with lanterns, the hall smelled of jasmine flowers, and the music filled the ballroom. Cats, skunks, possums, and otters danced happily as Catarella was walked around the ballroom, admiring everything. She took one bite of sushi when her eyes met Prince Meow's strikingly brown eyes. I'm going to pause it here for a second. Let me share the screen. All right,
What am I going to read?
I'll tell you right now. Catarella walked around the ballroom admiring everything. She took one bite of sushi when her eyes met Prince Meow's strikingly brown eyes. He smiled at her across the ballroom and began to walk towards her, his smile growing even bigger.
"You're a very cute cat. I've never seen you before,"
said Prince Meow. Catarella blushed a deep red. "Well, you're handsome yourself, Prince Meow."
"May I have this dance?"
Prince Meow asked. Catarella could not resist his charms and began to twirl in his arms. They laughed and purred together and could not keep their eyes off one another, even when a fly flew past their whiskers. Stop share. I'm going to pause it.
Totally bien.
And now we're going to see how we're going to add similes and metaphors to our own fairy tale. I'm going to show you really quickly. I'm just going to go back to this part of my story. So Catarella was whisked into the night in her carriage towards the magnificent Empire State Building. Made a mistake there. When she arrived, the whole suite was lit up with lanterns. The hall smelled of jasmine flowers and the music filled the ballroom. Cats, skunks, possums, and otters danced happily as Catarella walked around the ballroom, admiring everything. She took one bite of sushi when her eyes met Prince Meow's strikingly brown eyes. His eyes, here's where I'm going to add a metaphor. His eyes were brown like almonds. He smiled at her across the ballroom and began to walk towards her. So I'm going to highlight my simile so you guys can see that one. I'm comparing his eyes, the color of his eyes to almonds. He smiled at her across the ballroom and began to walk towards her, his smile growing even bigger. I want you guys to really understand like how big his smile is. So I'm going to compare it to like the crescent moon, when the moon kind of looks like, I'll show you guys a picture so you know what I mean. Crescent moon. So like that, like his smile is that big. So I'm going to go back to the story. That's not my story. 1 second. Okay, so growing even bigger like a crescent moon. You're a very cute cat. I've never seen you before, said Prince Meow. Catarella blushed a deep red. There's another opportunity for me to add a metaphor or a simile. So Catarella blushed a deep red. Her cheeks were 2 strawberries. Well, you're handsome yourself, Prince Meow. May I have this dance? Prince Meow asked Catarella. Prince Meow asked. Catarella could not resist his charms and began to twirl in his arms. They laughed and purred together and could not keep their eyes off one another, even when a fly flew past their whiskers. So I'm going to go back to our learning intention for today, which is adding similes and metaphors. Make sure you go through the recipe card. If you need to pause and write the recipe card down in your writer's workshop notebook, go for it and try to see that if you can add, here's our learning intention, our success criteria, at least 2 to 5 similes or metaphors in your story. You can add your simile and metaphor below in the YouTube comment section, or if you haven't already, send us your fairy tale. We can't wait to read it. See you guys in the next video.